Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to episode 75 of Buha's Block, our first live stream Buha's Block episode. Excited to test out this new format, but we have a lot to get into because the Lakers made a trade. I jinxed it last night when I said that last night's stream was my last show of 2024, barring the Lakers making a trade to close out the year. The next morning, they go out and make a trade, their first in 22 months. And now we are here to discuss it, to break it all down. If you guys can't tell by my voice, I am still going through it. Woke up this morning at like 8:30, right before the trade ended up happening, and had a migraine, couldn't get out of bed, so went back to sleep, and I woke up at 11 to over 30 texts and missed calls and tweets and all that stuff. So had to quickly start making calls and texts and talking to people and reporting this out. And I have a story that should be going up shortly at The Athletic. So check that out if you are subscribed there. If you have not subscribed there, please consider doing so. That said, let's get into the trade. So the Lakers end up trading D'Angelo Russell, Maxwell Lewis, and the 2027, 2030, and 2031 second round picks that they have to the Brooklyn Nets for Dorian Finney-Smith and for Shake Milton. And I really like this trade. I think it's a great trade for the Lakers. They end up adding a 3-and-D wing, which I think Dorian Finney-Smith truly is that. And the cost is just D'Lo, and in 3 seconds they get to keep both of their firsts. So now they have access to the 2029, 2030, and 2031 firsts. They can trade, obviously, still two of those, the 2029 and 2031 firsts in a deal, or potentially just one of those, but between now and February 6th. And I just think it's a really good trade. Like you get a potential starter or key bench guy in DFS. You get bigger, you get tougher. He's shooting 43.5% on threes this season. He is the only player in the league to spend at least 15 half-court possessions a game defending guards, forwards, and centers, which I think is a wild thing, according to Second Spectrum data. So that just shows his defensive versatility. This is a guy that the Lakers have coveted for years, dating back to 2023. I just reported about it on The Athletic, but this is a guy that they had interest in last year. They tried to trade for last year. And they've had interest in him dating back to right before the Kyrie trade to Dallas, when he ended up going to Dallas. But this is, I just really like this move. And he's 31. He's got a $15.6 million option for next season. But I think Dorian Finney-Smith, I will touch on losing D'Lo and some of the concern with that a little bit later. But as just looking at it for what it is, Dorian Finney-Smith, 43.5% on threes. That's an elite mark. Lakers right now have, or before the trade, had 5 guys averaging 5 or more 3-point attempts per game. LeBron, Austin, and D'Lo. None of those guys were shooting above 36% on threes. So Rui is at 45% actually, but he's a little bit lower at like just around 4 attempts per game. So Dorian Finney-Smith is attempting 5.4 a game. And you look at that and it's like, he's actually shooting a really good percentage on like a higher volume of threes. So I'm going to pull up my story here just to read some excerpts of it, just because I got into the weeds with DFS and his fit and whatnot. But so he's shooting about 37% on corner threes, and he's shooting about 45% above the break, 45.5%. So that is something to note, just because the Lakers 37% on corner threes. Lakers tend to generate a lot of corner threes for their wings. And he is a little bit lower from a corner three perspective, but 45.5% above the break is elite. And that's a way that the Lakers can use him as a pick and pop big or wing or whatnot. He can play either front court spot. He's actually defended. Kranjis has been on this. I've talked about it. He's defended more 4s and 5s this season, but I think is capable of defending clearly either front court spot and potentially even some center in smaller lineups. Like if you're looking at JJ has tended to like some of these smaller lineups. And if you go with LeBron, Rui, DFS, you can switch across those 3 positions and potentially put DFS on some 5s. And he's actually defended 5s fairly well this season. He's defended power forwards the best, and then 5s the second best. But he's also done really well against perimeter shot creators this year. So I think that's the exact type of defender that the Lakers need. So looking at it, I mean, the defensive versatility, the 3-point shooting, if you're looking at weaknesses, like he's not a high volume scorer. He's not a guy that's really going to like attack closeouts. He doesn't have that dynamic scoring ability that like a Rui has, if we're comparing those two. But he is someone that, again, defensively is a clear upgrade. I think he becomes the Lakers' second best front court defender when healthy, or among the healthy guys right now. Obviously, I think Vando, they're different types of defenders, but healthy Vando's probably better, I would say, than Dorian Finney-Smith, but Dorian Finney-Smith has a level of like toughness and physicality that I think the Lakers have really needed. I've talked about them kind of needing a goon, kind of needing a dog, like one of those guys who's going to get in there and just like muck things up. And Dorian Finney-Smith checks that box. So looking at it, again, mentioned the defensive versatility, the 3-point shooting. He's shooting 48% on open threes and 42.5% on wide open threes. The Lakers generate a lot of those types of threes, either on the weak side corner, weak side wing. So that's encouraging that he's shooting like that in Brooklyn, where they don't have the same level of offense and same level of guys drawing attention the way that LeBron, AD, and Austin can. So I really like his fit there from a shooting perspective. He has a fan clearly in JJ Redick. I include a couple of tweets in my story about JJ had a tweet, "How can you not love DFS?" And then there was also a clip from Old Man in the 3 where he's talking about DFS and just his versatility and his just how valuable of a role player he is. JJ and DFS did briefly play together at the end of JJ's career in Dallas. So that's also something of note. And one thing I don't yet have clarity is what the starting lineup is going to look like in the aftermath of all this. In talking to different people have different theories, because Rui and Max have both been playing well. I highlighted both of them last night. I've been highlighting both of them recently. Lakers have won 6 of 8 games, in part with those guys being key contributors on the wing. At the same time, DFS has been a full-time starter basically since the 2019-20 season. So among those 3, obviously, I think 2 of the 3 are going to start. I think it's a good problem to have, but you know, by so far the early indications are there's not been a decision made to my knowledge as to like who is going to start. I think the most logical thing could be moving Rui to the bench, especially now that they traded D'Lo. You can stagger Rui and LeBron a bit. Rui's more of a 4 anyway than a 3, and you can get him going offensively a bit, coming off the bench and being that spark plug that he's sort of been with the starters. And then you put DFS and Max Christie as 2 3-and-D wings around AD, LeBron, and Austin. And it makes sense of you have your 3 high usage guys. You have 2 guys who can space the floor, defend multiple positions. And it just makes a lot of sense in my opinion. At the same time, Rui's been playing really well. So it is tough to say, move to the bench, you're being demoted. I don't think it's an easy decision for JJ Redick, but that said, I think just looking at like what kind of makes sense, I think they already have Gabe Vincent, who's now dealing with this oblique injury, Cam Reddish, and potentially Vando coming off the bench. So you already have some defensive-minded guys who can come in and defend multiple positions. I think you need some more offensive punch. And Dalton's been on the fringes of the rotation. D'Lo's now gone. So I would say, you know, Dalton's looked better the last couple games and has had a couple of double-digit scoring games, but I think they're going to need more than just Dalton. So I think potentially moving Rui to the bench and DFS starting in his place could make sense. You could go DFS and Rui. I think with the way that DFS has transitioned into defending bigger players this season. I don't think either one of those guys can check like a Ja Morant, De'Aaron Fox, that type of quick guard. Like Rui certainly can't. In DFS, I think those guys are just too fast for him. So I like more having like the one bigger wing defender and then Max as that point of attack, backcourt guard defender. So I think I would keep Max in the starting lineup, and then I would make it between Rui and DFS from the Lakers. But again, I haven't gotten a clear indication. Talking to different people have different theories about what's going to happen with this. So next question for me is like, how did this happen? Right. So that was sort of my preliminary thoughts on DFS and his fit. The asking price, I've been told by team and league sources, and again, this is all going to be in my story that's going up shortly at The Athletic. The asking price had been a first-round pick dating back to last season for DFS. The Lakers had interest in DFS dating back to last season, and the asking price was a first-round pick. And there had been a report, I want to say a day or two ago, that the Grizzlies were getting involved and that they were considering giving up a lottery-protected first-round pick for DFS. So the price had dropped recently from a first to a protected first, and that's what Brooklyn was looking for. Seemed like they were getting close with the Grizzlies, but the Lakers ramped up their efforts to get a deal done in recent days, I've been told. And ultimately, they were able to get a trade done without giving up a first-round pick, which, again, I think is a masterstroke from Rob Pelinka in the front office. Because to have a player like DFS who I think really can improve and address some of the needs that they have on the perimeter, and to not give up a first-round pick and basically give up same price for Dennis Schroeder, who I think is a solid player, but obviously a small guard, and he's not been a great fit so far in Golden State, and there's some limitations there. I just think DFS, he's a plug and play role player who, whether he starts, whether he comes off the bench, he's going to improve this team. He's going to fit in the playoff rotation, and I just think he's going to make the Lakers better. So I think he fits very well, and LA, again, being able to execute this and not give up a first, I think that's the key to it all. I would have felt it was a slight overpay if it was a lottery protected first, but I wouldn't have disliked the deal. But to not give that up, 3 seconds, you give that up. I think it's worth it. What about Shake Milton? I would say is my next question. And he's coming off a game actually where he just had 16 points and 12 assists. I think the one concern with trading D'Lo, and I will touch on D'Lo in a second, is the potential playmaking and ball handling that's left over for the Lakers. So looking at it, Lakers really, in terms of rotation level ball handlers, only have LeBron, Austin, and Gabe right now. You probably throw Shake into the mix, but I view him more as a fringe rotation guy. I don't view him as a mainstay necessarily when the Lakers are healthy. As currently constructed, let's just say they go DFS and Max as the two starters. I would say the bench would be something like Rui, Gabe, Dalton, Jackson, or Christian, and then probably Vando, and then Cam is on the outside of the rotation. So you got 9-10 guys there, and I think it'd be tough for Shake to crack that top 9 or 10. Lakers could still obviously make moves, and that could look different. But in terms of what it looks like now, that's where I think Shake is more of a fringe guy, kind of right there with Cam. But in the short term, with this oblique injury for Gabe and him potentially missing some time, we haven't gotten an update on that yet. Also with D'Lo now being traded, Shake, as a guy who could step in, he's 6'5", he's a big guard, not much of a defender, but is a guy who can get hot. He's capable of scoring outbursts. He's a skilled offensive player. And I really, for me, the thing I like the most is the size, where he's just not, even though he's not a plus defender, at least not being 6'1" with that skill set and being 6'5". I think that just gives this team a bigger identity overall. And really now, if you look at the rotation outside of Gabe, everyone's 6'5" and above. And that is exactly the type of identity and the type of size that you want around LeBron and AD. And I just really think this balances the roster out much better. But in the short term, Shake Milton could be a sneaky addition just because, again, if Gabe is out, if he has to miss some time, Shake can step in and be a bench guard and I think help things. And bit of a streaky player, but overall shooting about 47% on the season, 39% on threes. So like he's been a guy who's been in the rotation before in Philly. And like I think it's worth the flyer, right? I would have personally rather have had Day'Ron Sharpe be included in the deal instead of Milton, but it is what it is. Milton is on the books for 2 more years at $3 million and then $3.3 million. He's also 28. Then the next part of this is losing D'Lo, right? So losing D'Lo, to be clear, is a loss for the Lakers. And I have maybe famously been a bit critical of D'Lo and some of his shortcomings and limitations, but he was their 3rd highest paid player for a reason. I think considered by many around the team and just around the league as their 4th best player. So from a talent perspective, this is a loss, right? Like on paper, D'Lo versus DFS, like I think DFS fits more what the Lakers need and can fit more in a winning environment. But D'Lo, like I don't want to gloss over the loss of D'Lo, what he meant to the team last season, what he's meant to the team at points this season. Like he's a clear ceiling raiser. And when he's pulling up for threes, when he's dissecting defenses in the pick and roll, 2-man game with AD, setting guys up, like it looks really good. And the Lakers look almost unstoppable or unbeatable. And I think until this recent stretch from Austin, where he's really stepped up as a ball handler and a playmaker, you could make the case D'Lo was their 2nd best ball handler and playmaker behind LeBron. At the same time, D'Lo's floor is low, and that has been the issue with D'Lo for his entire stretch with the Lakers, but also going back to Minnesota and Brooklyn and Golden State in his previous stops. And really the 2 lowlights came in the playoffs when the Lakers needed him the most in the 2023 Western Conference Finals. Averaged, I have it here, 6.3 points a game, 32.3% shooting and 13% 3-point shooting. And then the 2024 first round series against Denver, where he was better from a raw scoring perspective, 14 points a game, but still on just 38% shooting and 31.8% 3-point shooting. And really the Denver matchup in particular has been a real weakness for him, where he's been played off the floor in almost every game against the Nuggets. Lakers often don't close with him, and the Nuggets relentlessly just pick on him, target him defensively, and have really been able to be physical with him and disrupt his rhythm. So I think that offensive unreliability with D'Lo, coupled with his defensive limitations, just made him a shaky bet as the stakes rose, as the playoffs and postseason neared. And really looking at it this season, like he's declined. Field goal percentage has gone down. 3-point percentage has gone down. It's been better recently. And part of that for sure has been the Lakers changing his role, moving him to the bench and empowering Austin and AD more offensively. But I think Austin's growth and AD being more the hub and the Lakers moving him to the bench, like they have de-emphasized D'Lo, that they have minimized him to an extent. They are no longer as reliant on him as they once were. That'll be tested in the next few weeks and seeing what the offense looks like and what the rotation looks like. But I think that the big thing with swapping D'Lo for DFS is LA got bigger, they got tougher, they got better defensively, and really in conversations, it's clear that they are high on DFS as, again, whether he starts or comes off the bench, as a playoff contributor, that he could be a top 7, top 8 guy within a playoff rotation. There were concerns about D'Lo's fit and all of that. And just, if you run it back and go to the playoffs with him, what's that going to look like? And really, with the way the 2 Denver series went, and even was a bit up and down against Memphis and Golden State, there was some concern about, like, is this guy really a 16-game player? So that's where the D'Lo thing is at. Like, again, I think there's some legitimate concern with what the playmaking and ball handling is going to look like, especially if Gabe Vincent has to miss time or he ends up getting traded as well. I would still put him as the 2nd most likely mid-sized guy to be traded right now. If they do that, then all of a sudden you do have that hole there. Though maybe Shake surprises and maybe Shake shows something that, you know, he's not just a throw in, he can contribute more. That's certainly possible. But as of right now, I think that's the one potential concern with all this. But otherwise, I think the Lakers are on paper a better team, a better two-way team, that there's more balance within the rotation, trading a guard for a bigger forward. And I think, this trade makes a lot of sense, and I really like it. In terms of the cap situation, touching on it, the Lakers they shed about $3 million in the deal. So they're about $3.5 million below the second apron. And that's saving them a total of $15 million with the luxury tax situation. Finney-Smith has a $15.4 million player option for next season. Milton has $3 million on the books for next year and 3.3 the following year. So that's basically minimum money that you could get off of if you really need to. And final question before I get into the Q&A, what's next? So from an asset perspective, the Lakers have 3 remaining first round picks, though to be clear, for the upteenth time, they can only trade 2 of those first round picks, not all 3, but 2029, 2030, and 2031. If they trade both, it would have to be 2029 and 2031. They have upwards of, if they trade both picks, they can do 3 pick swaps. If they only trade 1 or 0 picks, they could do upwards of 4 or 5 pick swaps. But let's just say tentatively 2026, 2028, and 2030 pick swaps. And then they have 2 remaining second round picks, their 2025 second round pick and the Clippers 2025 second round pick. So that is the assets that's left. Obviously, from a contract perspective, they've got Gabe, who's got a year left. Vando's got 3 years left. Rui's got a year left, though I've talked about them not wanting to trade him. You got interesting young guys in Max and Dalton, who they also don't want to trade. Austin's got another 1+1. He has a player option in 2026. I assume he will opt out. And then you got some minimum guys that you could trade in JHS as well. Then as for the rest of the next 5 weeks or so, my understanding from team and league sources, and again, this is something that I'm going to be reporting out at The Athletic, is that the Lakers are, now that they made this move, their plan is to see how DFS fits with either the starting lineup or the bench, just fits within the lineup, get some of these injured guys back. Jackson Hayes is likely going to be back on Tuesday against Cleveland. Christian Wood has been progressing, still unclear on a timetable for him. Vando, there was the initial projection of early January. There's been no update since then, but if we take that at face value, then potentially early January, we'll see. Then now we have this uncertainty with Gabe, but really they need the front court reinforcements, right? So they want to see how DFS fits. They want to see how the front court comes together with some of these injured guys returning. And then they want to evaluate the trade market and assess what are our needs and what are we willing to give up. And so for this reason, this is why when I've been asked what's most likely 1 first round pick, 0 first round picks, both first round picks, I've been saying 1 to 0 first round picks, that 1 is probably the most likely. And I'm not going to say I see the Lakers necessarily making a second move, but it's within the realm of possibility, and they are well positioned to potentially overpay a little bit to get a guy that maybe is like a fringe first round pick guy, just to secure that guy, because they already didn't give one up in this DFS trade. But my understanding is they're going to continue to scour the market, look at what they need, what kind of makes sense within the rotation. They want to see, what does it look like with Gabe potentially involved more coming off the bench? What does it look like with Shake Milton? Do we need to plug now this playmaking, backcourt ball handling, scoring hole? And I mean, I still think that the backup center spot continues to be a source of concern and something that they potentially need to address. So a lot, I would say, and I've been saying, I don't think one move satisfies all their needs. And my understanding is the Lakers don't feel that either. However, this is a good move. And this is a move that, especially keeping the first, now I think they are well positioned to make a trade closer to the trade deadline with the first round pick and have some time now to assess DFS, his fit, what the front court potentially looks like, and then really decide, do we need a better backup 5? Do we need another 3-and-D wing? Do we need maybe a bigger 2 guard that can be in competition with Max for that starting spot or a key bench spot? Or do we need another ball handler? Or do we need a couple of these positions and need to go out and get that with our remaining draft capital of upwards of 2 first-round picks, 3 pick swaps, and 2 second-round picks? So a lot that I just covered in what's the time here? About 30 minutes. So I will now open it up to Q&A, and this will all be a little bit more concisely written and reported on at The Athletic. Story should be going up shortly here, but I see we got a bunch of super chats. Let's get into it. First one from Rye Guy, Obi Toppin, and Walker Kessler. That is all. I would say, I'm still on board with Walker Kessler. It might, I don't know if they're going to make 2 more trades. That's certainly possible. Maybe it's a 3-team trade with Indy and Utah, but I like Walker Kessler, not as high on Obi Toppin, but I see the vision. I just depend on price for me. Is that Jovan Martin? I like your name, pretty close to mine. Thank you for the super chat. Walker Kessler and Colin Sexton makes too much sense. It does make a lot of sense. And now in terms of matching salary, it would probably have to be something like Gabe, and I don't remember what Sexton's making off the top of my head. You could get there with like Gabe, maybe JHS, and like Christian Wood, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you have to include Vando. Okay, so he's making 18.3. So you do get there. Gabe's at 11. If you throw in JHS, he's at about 3.8. That gets you to about 15. And then if you throw in Christian Wood, but then with Walker Kessler, yeah, you probably have to do Vando with Gabe and Vando. And my fear in that case would be they'd want both picks to take on, like, 1 for Kessler and then 1 to take on Vando's contract. So it gets a little tricky, but in a vacuum, if we're putting the picks aside and just like what makes sense to go after, I do like a potential Kessler Sexton fit. Super chat for Matthew. If you haven't tried this for migraine, soak your feet in hot water. Thank you for the advice, Matthew. I've not tried that, but I will try that after this. I'm struggling. I'm not going to lie, but seeing we have 1,600 people in here is making me feel better, and I'll push it through. I appreciate you all. Hammer Holding, let's go Jovan. I'm hyped to see how DFS fits. Yes, I've been a fan of DFS's fit with this group for 2 years. Again, reported at the 2023 trade deadline, he was someone that they were interested in. Last season, he was someone they were interested in, and they finally get him. So I really like the fit. FJ Betaphile, Jovan, just ignore the non-critical thinker liars. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm trying, man. It's tough because I'm human, right? And anything I say, or especially if I report on something, I want it to always be accurate and right. And I try to do the best job I can. And it's already tough to do the job in and of itself, but it's also tough when people want to take bits of what you say and then really use it for engagement like that. People like to use my name to get engagement, and that's, if you want to use that to make money on X, that's fine, but like at least do it accurately. That's all I ask. Tina Guzman, thank you for the super chat. What center can the Lakers realistically get? Well, I mean, it's still the same candidates that they previously had. Obviously, for Valanciunas, they can only trade 2 second-round picks now, so that does limit those conversations in terms of, you can't go past that. If you do, it would have to be a swap or a first-round pick. So it does. I think the parameters are a little different now in terms of the most they basically can offer 2 second-round picks for a center, or now you start getting into the first-round conversation. I would throw in Walker Kessler, Robert Williams, Nikola Vucevic, Jakob Poeltl, Jonas Valanciunas. Depending on how you view those guys, you could argue whether they're worth 2 seconds or a first. I think Kessler is worth a first. I think Robert Williams is borderline. I think the rest of the guys, in my opinion, are more like double second. guys. One other note that I should make is because the Lakers traded, I believe they already traded their 2029. They did already trade the 2029 second, and they now traded the 2031 second. The protections in terms of lottery protecting a first, it's a little bit tricky. So they cannot lottery protect the 2031 first, because to lottery protect something, you have to have some sort of contingency as to, if this doesn't happen, this is the fault. So a lot of times it'll be like, you'll lottery protect the first, and then if that pick doesn't convey, it'll be, well, we'll give you a second. But they cannot do that with the 2031 first. So that would have to be unprotected. And because they've now traded 2029 and 2030, that also applies to the 2029 and 2030 picks, because they cannot say, we will, this will convey to a second round pick, because they don't have those second round picks. Now, they could go out and get a second round pick potentially in a smaller deal, and then put that in a trade and kind of make that a contingency part of the protecting a first. But as things stand, if they are to trade one of those first round picks, they cannot lottery protect them unless the team is willing to just say it doesn't convey into anything, right? But I'm not even sure if that's legal or not. So I would say as of now, it's looking like if they do trade it first, it would have to be unprotected. So that's one thing to note. But I would say that the center options have not changed. If anything, not trading a first for DFS gives them a little bit more ammo to potentially outbid and be more aggressive in getting a center. Nick, friend of the pod. Hey, Jovan, big fan. What's up, man? Quick question. How do you feel about the NBA rigging the 0-2 Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Kings? I'm not going to answer that, but I am going to let the chat flame you for that question. But appreciate you, Nick. Appreciate the super chat. Super chat from Christian. Do you think we see DFS play Tuesday night? How much more likely is it we take the game versus Cleveland with him in the lineup? Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well, Christian. So my understanding is they are flying to LA now or soon, and they will be going through their physicals tomorrow. Lakers are practicing tomorrow. So depending on how that all goes, they will, if they pass their physicals and they're cleared, they will practice tomorrow, and then we will potentially talk to them after practice. And if all goes well, they would be cleared to play on Tuesday. So it seems likely that that's going to happen. Now, there's sometimes holdups. It could also be holdups on the Lakers side, like D'Lo has a left thumb sprain that he just was dealing with. So you need both sides to pass all the physicals and be cleared for it to officially go through in terms of like it's officially gone through, but it's contingent on physicals. So they will be cleared once all the players in the deal are cleared. I also didn't mention Maxwell Lewis. I think one fun note with Maxwell Lewis is technically the last trade the Lakers made was trading for Maxwell Lewis in the number 40 pick 2023 draft. So I say they haven't made a pick in 22 months because I'm talking about like a trade of consequence was really at the 2023 trade deadline. But technically the last player that they had acquired in a trade was Maxwell Lewis. I think he's shown some flashes in the G League, but he's not, in my opinion, close to being a rotation caliber guy. So he's going to go develop in a situation where there'll be lower stakes, less pressure, and he could really grow his game. So I think it's a good situation for Maxwell. As for, I think it helps. I think adding DFS into to me, DFS is like, he's pretty much just going to stand around the 3-point line and bomb open threes and play defense. So like that type of guy can plug into like any system, any lineup and help you. I think Shake might be more of an adjustment of just him getting accustomed to the offense and the hierarchy and whatnot. But I think it increases their odds to be honest of winning the Cleveland game. Now Cleveland's tough. Cleveland's 27-4. So it's going to be a tough game, but they are on a back-to-back. They are playing Golden State tonight. So that's worth noting, but thank you again and Happy New Year. Steve Stevenson, thank you for the super chat. Given Pelicans fire sale, is Herb Jones possible? He's possible, but it is going to cost a lot. I think it would cost at least both first round picks and potentially more. So it's just a matter of if there ends up being a bidding war between the Lakers and other suitors and like what that price ends up being. Pieter K, yo gang, let's get them likes up for Jovan. Yes, if you are watching this and you have not yet liked it, please like this video and let's get the algorithm going. George Santiago, thank you for the super chat. 2024 was great for the pod. Wishing a better 2025. Thank you, George. You are one of the OGs. I remember you from the beginning, and yeah, let's keep growing this thing. And again, I said this with my last stream. Whatever you guys want to see for next year, and whatever were your favorite memories and moments from last year, I would love for you to comment them on this video and let me know. So just good to know what to do more of and what to do less of next year. Jay Hoodie, thank you for the super chat. Rui, Gabe, and both firsts, and maybe the protection removed for Sexton and Walker Kessler. Would you do that? I would not. I would not. I would do it for a first and removing the protection. I don't think that Sexton and Kessler are worth both firsts, including how well Rui and Gabe have been playing lately. I think you start to then you lose another wing and you lose. I think Gabe's better than Sexton defensively, so you have a decline defensively. You do get the boost offensively with Sexton compared to Gabe and just without D'Lo now. And Walker Kessler, of course, is an upgrade over Hayes, Wood, and bolsters your front court, your rim protection. I'm a big Walker Kessler guy, but I would say I think that's a little bit too much for now. If they did it and you're just going all in, you're really giving up all the assets, you know, I guess like more power to them for going for it. But I think I've gotten to the point where I have a really high bar for trading Rui, and I don't think Sexton and Kessler meet that bar. Okay. I am back into the chat. I covered all of the super chats. What's up, everybody? I'm going to go about 20 more minutes, just so you guys know. A real 20, not a Jovan 20. Golden Knight, shout out Jovan. Keep up the good work, fam. As always, thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Hope to see you at a game soon. I'm seeing random names. Marcelo Huertas and Cedric Sabalas in here. Romel, Jovan Goon comparison equals DFS. Yes, I think he's the exact type of guy. Greg King, how can we get Bruce Brown? Well, now they could use it first. And I don't love the idea of an unprotected first for Bruce Brown, but if it, I mean, you still have your 2 seconds. Maybe you do 2 seconds and a swap or something. I think that's better than giving up a first. I would fight to keep a first if you can, but they can go out and slightly overpay to get Bruce Brown and it not really be like if the ultimate price is like, a first and 3 seconds for Dorian Finney-Smith and Bruce Brown, I think that's a win of a trade deadline. Terrence Harvey, is there still a chance for Cam Johnson? Never say never, but there's just a report from Mark Stein that they're still looking for 2+ picks for Cam Johnson. I think that's too rich for the Lakers' blood. I think if they were going to get Cam Johnson, it probably would have been in a trade like this to either get him as a primary guy or to do both together. So depending on the price, there's always a chance, but I think it's unlikely at this point. Lil Chris Johnson 18, thank you for the super chat. Can you see a Braun, Max, DFS, Vando, AD, Reeves, DFS, Rui, Braun, AD lineup? And thanks for the content, Jovan. Much love. Thank you. Much love to you as well. So first one, Braun, Max, DFS, Vando, AD. So you got 3 good perimeter defenders around Braun and AD. That's kind of a throwback to the 2020 model. I could see that. I think you're a little light on ball handling there. So that's where I might prefer Gabe in there just to add a second ball handler. Although you're obviously like, I would say this is that's more of a lineup for maybe Boston, and you are putting 3 wing defenders out there. You're running a lot of Braun, AD pick and roll, and maybe like Vando has underrated, I almost said unrelated, underrated playmaking chops for a guy who's considered a minus offensively. And Max and DFS are obviously spacers. So I think there's actually kind of some interesting things you could do with a 3-man game there with Braun, AD, and Vando. So I like that for certain teams in general. I think that lineup is a little bit light on ball handling. I think you want at least a second ball handler next to LeBron. And then Reeves, DFS, Rui, Braun, AD. I mean, that could be the starting lineup moving forward if they move Max to the bench. I think they should keep Max in there as that guard, point of attack guy against smaller, quicker, more athletic guards. But you could see this lineup and it could make sense. You could be switchable with DFS, Rui, Braun, AD. You can really switch across all 4 guys. So that could be a closing lineup look. That could be also potentially a Boston look. So I could see certainly both lineups potentially playing. Though the first one, you got to get Vando back, right? Super chat from Steve Stevenson. Is now the time for a Fox sweepstakes entry? Sure. I think so. Now the one tricky part now is Fox is making 36 million, and you ideally would have put D'Lo in the trade as an expiring. Like even if you put Gabe and Vando, that only gets you to about like 2021. You're still 15 million short. So unless they're willing to put Austin in the deal, which I think they'd be reluctant to, that's where this gets a little tricky now with the matching salary. But you could do, I guess, Rui and Gabe gets you to about 28. And then if you threw in Max, I guess Rui, Gabe, and Max gets you to about 35-ish. And then 2 picks, a swap or 2. You got in the conversation, but I think trading D'Lo probably makes it. I'm not saying it's not impossible to trade for Fox, but it does limit. An attractive part of the D'Lo contract was the expiring nature to it. None of the other mid-sized guys are expiring, so if Sacramento is looking to tear it down and rebuild, that contract would be a little bit more appealing potentially. But maybe if they're willing to put, if it's Rui, Max, and Gabe, I guess you get close financially. Benny takes on. Thank you for the super chat. How about a TJ and Turner for Gabe, 1 first JHS matching pieces? I like that. I like TJ a lot, and JJ loves TJ for whatever that's worth. I would say so. Turner's making what, like low 20s? I want to say high teens, low 20s. So the problem is you might have to include Rui or Vando, but I think you're going to have to attach some stuff to put Vando in trades. So I like the framework of this, but I think the Lakers would probably have to invest a bit more on the draft capital side. Total D10, credit Rob for now. I hope he knows we need more. Yeah, I want to, I tried to make that clear earlier, but I think Rob deserves his flowers. He made a win now move, but also kept the first. And I think on the one hand, of course, you want to be aggressive with the first, and I think that they probably should make a trade where they trade at least 1 first. But at the same time, if you can improve the roster and not give up a first, obviously that's a no-brainer. I think that's what they just did with the DFS trade. So for sure, I think I said it at the top. I think it was a masterstroke from Rob in the front office, and Rob deserves a lot of credit. TP10 Sports, what do you think about Nick Richards from the Hornets as a backup big? Salute, Jovan. Thank you for the super chat. I like Nick Richards. Especially if you can get him for not a first, which I think seems realistic. If it's a second or upwards of 2, again, I think getting DFS at a fair price or potentially even under market value, you now have a little bit more flexibility to potentially overpay for another player. So I would like Nick Richards for a second or 2. Andre Miller, thank you for the super chat. Kessler alone isn't worth 2 firsts. Kessler beside AD, that's worth it. It's a significant force multiplier. I like that theory, and I like where you're at. The one thing I noted last night on my stream is the question to me is like, and this is also in talking to some people around the situation, like how much would JJ actually play a Kessler a Valanciunas, a Vucevic, right? Because he's tended to play one big lineups and even sometimes trended away from a backup center and going with Rui or LeBron at the 5. So now that they added DFS, a guy who's also played some 4 and 5 this season, and I guess he obviously plays a lot of 3 and 4, but more so at 5, like, does that just have them lean into that more? And do they say, hey, we're kind of fine with Jackson and Christian? I don't have a great answer to that as of right now, but I think that the one concern would be if you give up both first for Kessler and then he's just like a backup center playing 18, 20 minutes a night. Is that really worth 2 firsts? Maybe it is. As you said, a significant force multiplier. I like that framing. I like that terminology, but it would just depend on what, kind of what's Kessler's role, what's his usage within the rotation. I think there's less concern if you give up just 1 first. That's where I'm kind of at with it, but I think 2 firsts is a little rich for my blood, but we'll see. Back to the chat. Question from Tali Khalifa. Jovan, what do you think is a bigger need, backup guard or big? I still think big because I don't trust ultimately the playoff utility and defense of Jackson Hayes and Christian Wood. I think Koloko has had flashes, but he's not quite at the level defensively that I think JJ has wanted, that, to be clear, I'm not reporting that. I just, based on him not playing in some games, him not playing in some second halves when they've been shorthanded in the front court, that to me just suggests that, like, I think JJ still Koloko's young, he's raw, so it's not even a knock on him. It's just, I think they want to continue developing him and getting him to a certain level. So I would still say, as constructed, backup big is the bigger need. However, if you trade Gabe for a wing, let's just say, then all of a sudden backup guard or even a big, then backup guard becomes a bigger need. If it's Gabe plus something for, like, if he's part of the if you go and get Sexton and Kessler, then you're kind of addressing both of those things. Though, are you trading Rui? Maybe you're creating a hole in the wing. Like, so I think it really depends on the context of, like, what the next move potentially looks like. But as constructed, I would say backup big is still the bigger need. Android Andreas, let's get Goga. One concern with potentially getting Goga, or one factor, is that Mo Wagner just went out for the season. And they're already, Paolo has obviously been injured. Franz has been injured. So I think that they need big. They're a big team, but they need big. So I think that's the one thing. A lot of chatter of random players. Greg King, is Bruce still injured? I believe so. I believe so. Or we're ramping up, to return. Jerry Soriano, your lender for life. Ben Simmons at the 5 is pure gold for Lakers in 2025. Biggest issue with Ben Simmons is the contract. He's making $40 million. That is very tough to, if he gets bought out. And now I think the Lakers, because they're above the first apron, have a restriction as to the size of a contract of a buyout guy that they could sign. So even then, I'm not quite sure if they could sign Ben Simmons, but in a certain role, I could see it, but I think it's very unlikely. Kronos, thank you for the super chat. Vando is a fave of mine, but him, Gabe, JHS, and 29 first for a healthy Bruce Brown and Bruno would be elite. I'd like to keep Rui almost as much as Austin and Max. I largely agree with this. I would put Austin in a bit of a different tier, especially with his contract situation, above Rui and Max, and just also now factoring in trading D'Lo. They are empowering Austin. That's probably something I should have mentioned. Like, it's clear that they've made Austin the primary ball handler and playmaker passer next to LeBron with D'Lo gone. So trading Austin, I'm not saying you're saying to trade him in this deal, but just trading him in general does create a major hole in the backcourt. Rui versus Max, Max, I think, has a better contract situation and is a bit younger. So I lean Max like as a longer term piece. But of course, Rui's been playing at a very high level. So, but I'm with you. I would like to, if I'm the Lakers, I try to keep Rui at high bar to trade him, and everyone else outside of Rui, Austin, Max Dalton is pretty much on the table. And of course, LeBron, AD. But you know what I'm saying. All right, going about 10 more minutes. L.A. Bruce is playing right now. Okay, so Bruce came back. I haven't. Let's see what he's how many games he's played in. Bruce has not played this season, so I looking this up quickly. Bruce has not made a season debut yet. So I don't know if he's been cleared and he's back, but he's not played since April. Kevin Cambridge, should the Lakers go for Tyus Jones? I don't think he's really possible, just because, one, it's like an inner division rival with Phoenix. They've needed a point guard. He's been the point guard for them. Could you overpay and get him? Sure, but he's also a small guard, and I don't love. Okay, I'm seeing the chat saying first game back. So Bruce Brown's back today, which I think is a good sign. I've said I think the Lakers would want to see him back for a couple weeks at least and make sure he's healthy, because the recent track record with guys with injuries, especially knee injuries, has not been great. K-Rock 004. Hey, Jovan, hope all is well. 2 questions. How quickly did the DFS trade come together, and did Memphis speed it up? And is there another deal on the horizon? So my understanding, and what I'm reporting out at The Athletic, is it came together, really ramped up the last few days. I think there have been conversations for 2 to 3 weeks or so, but the Lakers ramped it up in the last few days. Memphis did speed it up a little bit, and I think that created some urgency. You never know where a leak of a trade talk is coming from, but it certainly, I think, helped Brooklyn to have that come out, that Memphis was interested in potentially giving up a protected first. And another deal on the horizon, my understanding is as I said earlier in the stream, that the Lakers are going to evaluate the roster now, see what DFS looks like, see if they can get some of these injured guys back, see what it all looks like over the next few weeks. And then if there is a second trade, that would likely be closer to the February 6th trade deadline. But another thing worth noting that I wrote about is someone compared this to the Rui. In a conversation with someone, they compared this to the Rui deal, about how LA went out and got Rui a couple of weeks before the deadline, at the 2023 deadline. So this time they went 5 weeks early and right after that 30-game mark that they referenced before the season. And it seems like that's kind of the initial trade to. So I would not expect, you never want to say never, because again, the Lakers kind of made this trade somewhat out of the blue in terms of a timing, but seemingly they want to give this at least a bit of a sample size before making a second move. And I would expect that, as to my prior reporting, closer to late January or early February, or like up until the deadline. Jovan, if DFS starts, who's the fourth option, him or Max Christie? I think with Max's capable scoring ability, then he'll probably be the fourth option, right? Yeah, I would lean toward Max in that instance. I think he's a more dynamic offensive player in terms of his ability to attack closeouts and dribble the ball, at least in comparison with DFS. I think it might fluctuate. Like even with the Lakers right now, there's nights where like Rui's kind of consistently the fourth option, but there have been nights where maybe Max or whoever else is in that starting spot is a little bit more involved. But I would lean toward Max, but it's probably close, to be honest. Okay, I see everyone saying Bruce Brown just returned. So I've not been as paying attention to the rest of everything with writing and reporting. Mockman, JHS Wood plus 2 firsts for Kessler in 3 seconds, then add a free agent. Thank you for the super chat. I like getting back 3 seconds in this deal. If you could just do it like a first and a second or a first and 2 seconds and maybe get back like 1 second and not give up 2 firsts, I would like the deal a lot more. I'm a bit iffy on 2 firsts for Kessler. I see a lot of double first. RGN Cal 4, what would it have taken to get Sharp 2? I'm not sure on this. I mentioned earlier, like I think one of the only things you could potentially nitpick if you really wanted to nitpick something was not getting Sharp instead of Milton. Now, maybe they viewed the backcourt position with losing D'Lo as a bit more of a need, but I would have liked a flyer on Sharp personally. But I haven't gotten an answer on that. Leo Potente, Jovan is Miles Turner an option on the center position. I have not heard him that he's available. I know the Lakers have been interested in him before. They've tried to trade for him before. So I think if he does become available, they would be interested, but it would come down to price and ultimately like what does Indiana want? Because they're a team that historically does not tank. Solomon, thank you for the super chat. Hornets looking to move players, kind of interested. Nick Richards and Cody Martin, excuse me. Shop Gabe and JHS and Wood or Hayes expiring also frees up a roster spot. Yeah, I mean, I think that they look like they're going to be sellers. I don't think they're quite sellers yet, but that could change closer to the trade deadline. I like both Nick Richards and Cody Martin. You add another wing, you add a big. If you do trade Gabe, though, again, you are potentially creating a little bit of a hole there in the backcourt. And if you're throwing in a second or 2 seconds, I'm fine with this. I would not give up a first, I don't think, for that package. Concerned Citizen, yeah, I like the timing of the deal. Better to evaluate earlier rather than later. I agree. I really like, you guys know, I've said, and I even said I would not consider the Lakers fully going all in if they didn't trade at least 1 first. And I stand by that statement, but I think trading 3 seconds for DFS was a great value. They did it at a great time right before the new year. And I think also having a couple days off before their next game and a full practice to potentially implement him, like that's an added bonus. So another thing I probably should have mentioned that I am reporting is that Memphis, because of the sort of sweepstakes with Memphis there, like a bonus for the Lakers was also keeping DFS away from Memphis, who's the 3 seed right now, because Lakers are the 5 seed. They're 18-13. And one of the teams they're potentially going to be competing with is Memphis, and preventing Memphis from getting DFS was a bonus to this whole thing. Dr. Funkology, it's not always up to the Lakers. This is the other part of it is it's not always up to the Lakers. Like Lakers can make an aggressive bid. They can try and get a player, but it's always a two-way street, right? So you gotta, it's gotta be what the other team wants. Okay, so you got another super chat. Corey Williams. Okay. I like the personal questions, Corey. Thank you for the super chat. Is black your favorite color? No. Red is my favorite color, but black is my second favorite color. I do prefer wearing black if it's a reference to me constantly wearing black in all my streams and episodes. Like I've gotten to the point where the one thing is you guys can see a little bit behind me. Like I am a sneakerhead. I have a bunch of Jordans. And outside of that, I like to kind of wear neutral colors and often just, to me, it's like black t-shirt and some type of shacket or sweater, cardigan or kind of sweater jacket with a black tee to games and some chinos or whatever. Like I try to keep it simple, not overcomplicate the wardrobe. The one thing I will overcomplicate is the sneakers, and then that's kind of my one accessory. What current album is in your gym rotation? So interestingly, I actually listen to podcasts at the gym, and I know that's kind of a weird thing for some people. Maybe I'm a bit of a weirdo, but I listen to like 4 to 6 podcasts a day. I'm and mix of NBA and lifestyle or just non-sports podcasts, some YouTube content podcasts, some just life stuff, and then also NBA. So it's kind of a mix of that. So I would say like I have my just kind of general, I wouldn't say that there's a current album. I just have like my liked songs and constantly listening to Rap Caviar and different playlists on Spotify, and then pulling those in and just adding them to my liked songs list and then shuffling it. So that's what I do when I listen to music often. And happy holidays and God bless to you as well. Thank you, Corey. Super chat from Glenn Penamora. I feel like they purposely didn't get Sharp because they're targeting a different big. That's certainly possible. I have not been told that, but that would make sense, and I could see that as a possibility. Jamal Haltom, thank you for the super chat. Can you ask JJ what he would say about the state of the current Lakers if he were coaching them? I'm a little confused by this question. Are we putting JJ in like the third person here, or just sort of like how he views the team? If are you asking if like he was a media member and he was assessing the situation, or what do you mean by that? Because I'm misinterpreting what you're trying to say. The Custodian, Lexus King, Jovan, fun question. You had control of the LAL for the next 10 years. Would you prefer 1 ring and 9 years of mediocrity, or 10 years of contending years but no ring? I go 1 year and 9 years of mediocrity. Banners, what is it? Banners fly forever, right? Or including in-season tournament banners, but we're talking about NBA championships here. I always pick a championship over contending, but no ring. Like you play for championships. Appetizers and sushi, thank you for the super chat. Jovan, don't let the aggregators and haters steal your joy. They wish that they could be like you. You are one of one. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Comments like this, the support from you guys really means a lot to me. And it is a nice reminder that there are people who are paying attention to what I'm doing and understand context and or the full picture of things, and not just kind of clipping and really basing their opinion on me based off that. I think so. I'm trying to see. Okay, so Fang Charlie, what up, Fang? He said if he was calling the game. So if you're saying if they were calling the games, that's an interesting question. Lakers in 7, Jovan, pretty personal question. If you can somewhat answer, does the reporter and writer job pay well for you? I would say relatively well. Yes. Like I would say I'm making an above average salary at the same time, living in Los Angeles, having a son that quickly could drain the finances and the bank account. But I would say, covering the Lakers, paying, working for the Athletic, it pays well. Like I would say it's not like some of the crazy sports media salaries that are thrown out there, but I'm doing solid. And honestly, this has helped as well, just doing YouTube and making some money off of this. And certainly something I want to continue to do longer term. L.A. What high school did you go to, and did any other famous people go there? I went to Agora High School, and off the top of my head, I think Heather Graham is the most famous person to go there. I think Noah Centineo briefly went there. He was a little bit younger than me, but that's about it. Jamal. Yes, if he were a member of the media or calling the games, my bad. I got you. It's an interesting question. I think that might be more of a private question, to be honest, than a public one. But maybe I do end up asking it. Okay, all caught up on super chats. Fang Charlie, aggregators are just not like us. Yes, yes, I will. I agree. Sam Davis saying, WW, appreciate you, Jovan Buha, Buha. Go emoji, thank you. Rolla, F the haters, probably Boston folks. I appreciate all the support. Seriously, guys, it means a lot. Louis Marrero, Jovan, we need more Jason collabs. So some breaking news here on the show. I will be collabing with Jason, I believe the second week of January. We're going to do a home and home. I'm going to do his show. He's going to do my show. We're going to be talking about, I think he's going to do my show right after the Rockets game. I'm going to do his show right after the Mavericks game. Lion King, Buha, is Shake Milton any good? I think he's fine. Like, I think he's a back end rotation player. And so certainly like he's better than Maxwell Lewis. So from that perspective, if we view DFS versus D'Lo and then Shake Milton versus Maxwell Lewis, I think the roster got better just from that in and of itself. But yeah, I think he's had 4 games this season, 15 plus. He's coming off a game with 16 points, 12 assists. I think he is more of like might be more of a good stats, bad team guy in terms of like you definitely like more of a bench player, 12 to 15 minute a night guy probably, but who knows? He could surprise and he can definitely score. And that's something that the Lakers can use, especially losing D'Lo. Abdul Hakim Umar, what are your ideal bigs to get now? My delusional get is Miles Turner, realistically Kessler, Goga, because they have Wendell and Isaac, and then Rob Williams. I like all the names. I mentioned with Goga, them losing Mo Wagner, I think kind of potentially makes that a little trickier because they're also down Paolo and Franz Wagner. And I just think, I don't know if they want to just sell off another big, but Turner, Kessler, and Rob Williams sign me up for any of those 3. Tommy Gold, I think you asked this earlier. I didn't get to it. So I touched on, I haven't gotten a great sense of who's going to start and what the starting lineup is going to look like. I would probably start DFS over Rui and go DFS and Max, but JJ is a big fan of Rui. He's also a big fan of DFS. He's also a big fan of Max. So like, it's a good problem to have. My one thing is like, I would probably keep Max just because I don't think DFS and Rui can guard. Like, let's say they're playing the Kings. I don't think you put either one of those guys on a De'Aaron Fox. Let's say they're playing Memphis. I don't think you want to put either one of those guys on Ja. So I think you need Max for those types of matchups. And then I think DFS as a similar level floor space, like shooting 2% worse than Rui, but shooting more threes than Rui from a volume perspective. Basically same level of shooter. I would say even a little bit higher just because of the volume. You're maintaining the floor spacing, but then you're also getting a better defender with a certain level of toughness, guy who's been starting for about 5 years now. I would lean DFS tentatively, but I would not be surprised if they just keep Rui, keep the same starting lineup and just keep that going. Which athletic guards should we go for? I think Bruce Brown checks 2A box and is an interesting player, especially now that he's back, as the chat so kindly let me know. So he made a season debut today. And I think him or Lonzo, although the salary's a bit tricky. Super chat from Collegial. How about Dante DiVincenzo to the Lakers? Thank you for the super chat. I'd be open to that, and I would give them a first for him if I'm the Lakers. I don't think Minnesota is giving up on the season yet. I think they're going to be a team, if anything, that's looking to buy at the deadline rather than sell. Ibrahim Azar, thank you for the super chat. Unrelated, but do you find it strange that Austin refers to Max as a kid? There's only a 5-year age difference. Love listening to you. Thank you. I mean, Max is kind of a kid. Like, dude's 21. He's younger than Dalton. I believe he might be closer in age to Bronny than he is to Dalton, if I'm not mistaken. Because I think, because Bronny just turned 20. So yeah, Matt, that's a good perspective on this. Max is closer in age to Bronny than he is to Dalton, which just shows you, two rookies on different ends of the spectrum in terms of age, but like that just shows you how young he is. So I think also him coming to the Lakers at 19, Austin, him being one of Austin's rookies, I think I could see Austin kind of still looking at him like a kid, but I don't think it's like sunning him or anything. It's not like a diss. It's just, I think it's more of a playful reference. Then Fang Charlie, Jovan, what's your favorite D'Lo memory of his second stint here? Mine would be, I'm a Lakers fan, Mikey. that was a good one. I would say, I think the Milwaukee game without LeBron at home, when I think he dropped 44, something crazy like that, hit the game winner over Brook Lopez, that floater. I think because that was a big win. And to me, that was like peak D'Lo. I would say arguably the best game I've seen him play as a Laker, certainly in that conversation, and probably his most points he scored as a Laker, if I'm not mistaken. But that one to me was like, and then there was also whatever was the game when he hit the 4 threes in a row, and then he had the sequence with LeBron. I don't think it was not the Milwaukee game, because it might have been, I don't remember if it was the Mikey game or not, but that one as well, when D'Lo was on a flurry, it was, the crowd was rocking. It was crazy. And I think Brooklyn will be a good chance for him to rehab his free agency value. Mario Hernandez, was Austin's performance last night what made Rob pull the trigger on the DFS trade? I don't think so. Again, my understanding is this had been building for a few days, but it certainly didn't help. I mean, it didn't hurt, right? Austin, I think, has shown a level of growth as a playmaker and ball handler that made them more comfortable parting ways with D'Lo. Throwing lies, do you think the team is better now? I do. I think the offensive ceiling is a little bit lower. I think the defensive ceiling is higher. I think there's more two-way balance. Dark Galaxy, are you going to get Crangus on the show soon? I do want to. I know he doesn't do a lot of guest pods, so I try to save it for certainly around playoff time. I would love to get him on, and similar to last season, we did a Lakers Nuggets playoff preview. I would love to have him do a playoff preview. Honestly, if I could get him and Pete at the trio of us to do a playoff preview, that would be awesome. But definitely would love to get him. Maybe at some point closer to the deadline, and then again around the playoffs. Theo 3&D, my first time discovering your channel. We will go back, watch past episodes, great delivery, and short show format. Like that I botched that as you're complimenting me. You definitely have a voice for media. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I barely have a voice right now, so I promise you my voice is better than it currently sounds. But if you think it still sounds good, I appreciate that. Legendary, can we trade for KCP? I've talked about this before. KCP, I don't see Orlando as sellers, and I think given how much they invested in him, it would be a pretty high price. Chris, Jovan, thoughts on Clarkson and Kessler? Love Kessler. Said that many times. I would give up a first-round pick for him. Clarkson could make some sense now that D'Lo's gone, but I would prefer Sexton between the two. Lazy one, yo, hey big dog. Do you think Milton and Finney are dogs? I do, especially Finney. DFS. That's he's gonna help. Android Andreas, you need James Worthy on the show. Would love to bring him on the show. Craig Osterberg, get Michael Thompson. Would love that as well. ASD123, yo, do you think the arrival of DFS means Rui can be gone sooner or later? I don't. I think that the Lakers are valuing Rui and want to keep him, not saying he can't be traded. So again, that there's always nuance here, but I think with the way Rui's been playing, if anything, they could potentially move him to the bench and have him in a more scorer role than the one that he's been in as a starter next to, as really the fourth option out there. So I think it just balanced, Lakers need wing size, and they just added another wing. I don't think you want to take away from that and then make that potentially a bit of a concern. FJ Pedophile. Jovan is that popular kid everyone wants to be friends with. Sometimes it seems pathetic, but then again, he's pretty cool. Thank you. I will take the compliment. Phantom Dancer starting DFS over Rui Christie. Too much value not starting him. That's why I think the most likely scenario is him starting over Rui. Again, I think Christie's too good defensively against guards that I think trying to put DFS or Rui on guards is a bit of a mistake. And also, I don't think you want to put that on Austin because Austin is now taking on a larger offensive burden. G-Man, Jovan, can you imagine a defensive lineup of Max, DFS, Vando, LeBron, and AD? 5 fire emojis. Very good defensive lineup that you could switch across at least 2 to 5, if not almost 1 to 5, depending on the matchups. Sky Falcon 5, do you think we see lineups with DFS as a small ball 5? I do. I might, especially with Jackson potentially coming back Tuesday and then Christian maybe on the horizon. I don't know how much we'll see it, but I could see certainly situations where a team doesn't play a backup big and maybe Jackson's at like a defensive disadvantage, them going to DFS. Schmidt K Originals, Rui / DFS, struggling. Should start or 6-man situational matchups. Yeah, I mean, I think you don't want to toy with guys' rhythm and like guys like to know whether they're starting, coming off the bench, when they're coming in, when they're coming out, what's their sort of like what the rotation looks like. So I don't like a rotating starting lineup, but I think there does need to be some level of flexibility. And I think here you can go more offensive with Rui or more defensive with DFS. Some of these comments are, how much money does Bruce Brown make? I think he's making about, he's making 20, I want to say. Because he signed a 2-year, a 23. Okay, yeah, 23. So same as Cam Johnson for what that's worth. Herman Williams, Trey Mann, or Io. I don't think Io is available. Otherwise, I would be interested in him. Trey Mann, I would like it more in like a bigger deal for Cody Martin or Nick Richards. Rich Forever Rondo, can we trade Rui, Gabe, Vando for Levine? Salary-wise, you get there. You might have to throw in a vet min as well, which shows just how much Levine is making. But that's tough for Chicago to do. Cam Smith, thank you for Super Chats. Bruce Brown for 2 seconds, Kessler for a first. If you can pull it off, I would certainly be interested in it. Android Andreas, D'Lo good player, and I feel negative vibes. Yeah, I would say I don't think the vibes were great. Closer to the end, I'll say. But he was, to Bino's point here, he was a great hype man. I do agree. He was a great teammate. Reyes, do you see JHS being moved? I think it depends on the deal. He is an expiring contract, one of, outside of the minimum guy, like him and the minimum guys. So among those guys, like a young former first round, mid first round pick, a guy you could take a chance on, I think he'd be more attractive to a lot of teams than a Christian Wood, a Jackson Hayes, a Cam Reddish. So from that perspective, I could see teams asking for him if there needs to be minimum matching salary. But he's in the conversation for most likely Laker to be moved. I still would probably peg it as Gabe as the most likely, but JHS is right there, arguably number 2. Lake Show B, you should collab with Alan Sliwa as well. I just did. I just had Sliwa on a couple weeks ago. Did his show a few weeks ago, so definitely we'll be collabing with him soon. Okay, catching up here. Thank Charlie. Jovan's 20 minutes equals 200. Yeah, well, you're right. I just got into the flow. Been getting a lot of super chats. I feel like I'm in a good rhythm here. I'm not feeling as bad as I was. FJ Betaphile, available guards to address the big athletic guards AR struggles against, example, Detroit. I would say that the best example is probably Bruce Brown. And now that he and D'Lo had some beef, so now that D'Lo's off the team, that's no longer a potential concern. I mean, you could go, if you clear a roster spot, you could go get a Lonnie Walker, a Dennis Smith, a Markelle Fultz. Those guys are all relatively varying degrees of athletic. But off the top of my head of guys that I think actually move the needle, Bruce Brown might be the only one that Lonzo too, but he's different type of athlete. But Lonzo too, depending on the price. Josh B, what are the Lakers looking for now that they have DFS? Backup big and potentially a more athletic guard. Those are, I reported on their 3 needs. They checked one of the boxes. Could still always use another 3-and-D wing, but I think a bigger athletic guard and backup 5. Thanushan Vijay, who do you think the Lakers will trade for next? I don't know. I mean, I reported on the people I've heard linked to them being Jonas Valanciunas, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith. They obviously, I'll probably rule out Cam Johnson now that they got DFS. Potentially Valanciunas, Robert Williams, Walker Kessler, Colin Sexton, Kyle Kuzma. Those have been Bruce Brown. Those have been the names that I've heard linked to them on the trade market in conversations with the team and with people outside the team. I'd like Alvarado depending on the price, but I'd want someone else from New Orleans. Kevin Cambridge, please keep JV away from this team. I'm largely with you, but they've been interested in him. Moises Cohen, serious question. Will the AR statue at Crypto feature a headband? Over 1,500 watching right now. Subscribe. Thank you. Please, let's, goal was to try and get to 20K by the end of the year. Might not get quite there, but if we could get to 19K, that would be awesome. And please be sure to like and subscribe on the stream right now. And well, if Lakers win a championship with AR wearing a headband, I could see it. But I mean, maybe. Like, he's been playing some of the best basketball of his career. Ashwin Prasad. Let's get 1,500 likes. Let's do it. Lakers in 7. Jovan, you're the GOAT. We all appreciate what you do. And also sneaky bull thoughts. I think if there was a team that needed a bull, it would be Phoenix. The fact that it hasn't really worked out there gives me a little bit of pause with bull. I know he's always been a guy that people are high on because of the potential and the flashes, but I'm open to almost any player depending on the price, but I mean, it would really, I don't know a trade framework off the top of my head, but I appreciate you. Rolla Plus, this is the best Laker channel out there without spamming content. Yes, and shout out to all the mods that have been keeping up with the spam. I appreciate you all, seriously. Throwing lies, is the team better now with the trades? I think you asked this earlier, and I did say yes. So, NR Jovan, were you surprised at John Hollinger of The Athletic ripping Max Christie resigning from the summer? A little bit. I would say, John is obviously a very data-driven person, and the data on Max hasn't been particularly good, like entering this season. So I think you had to really be plugged in to the team and watching them on a nightly basis to kind of know what type of potential Max had and some of the flashes that he had. So I don't necessarily fault him for not viewing it that way, but I was a little bit surprised at how much he hammered the signing. Kuba, thank you for the super chat. I don't see a question, so if you're just sending a super chat, I appreciate you. If you have a question, let me know in the chat. Dustin Rigsby, Jovan, thanks for all you do. Do you think we could get Jonas for our 2 remaining seconds? I do. I think that's probably fair value for him. If it gets bumped up to 3, the asking price, obviously Lakers can't trade 3 unless they do a separate deal that nets them a second, and then they could put that in. And then, of course, they could offer a first or pick swaps, but that I think is too much for Jonas. So I think two probably gets you him, or it's at least close to what he's going to go for. Miles, thoughts on Kelly Olynyk? I like him from an offensive perspective. Like I definitely think if the Lakers could somehow get a 3-and-D big and Kelly checks that 3 box. The defense, though, I think he's like an underrated, like anytime just kind of like a slower white guy. I think there's an assumption that they're a bad defender. I think Kelly can be a decent team defender, but he's not a rim protector. Like he's not a guy you could throw on Jokic or Sabonis or Embiid for stretches. And I just think he's ultimately too limited on that end. So that's I know there's some smart people that I like that are high on him, but I'm not among that group. I'm seeing a lot of De'Aaron Fox questions. I touched on him earlier. I think losing D'Lo from an asset perspective makes it a little trickier in terms of matching salary, but if LA's willing to put basically all of their assets on the table, you can get in that conversation at least. G-Man, Jovan, do you think the Lakers have more of a propensity to trade Gabe now because they got Shake? They're different. I would say Shake is more of like a microwave offense guy and not the level of defender that Gabe is. But it's certainly a low risk gamble on their part that if they do end up trading Gabe, that they have some more insurance there in the backcourt. Still have Quincy. I mean, who knows? Maybe Quincy gets a shot and makes the most of it. Reyes, any chance Ben Simmons gets a buyout? Would the Lakers be interested? Problem, I noted this earlier. I think there's a restriction with the first apron where you can't sign guys on the buyout market that were making above the non-taxpayer MLE, which is about 13 million. So I think Ben Simmons would qualify as being above that. Android, Andres, I need sleep. I'm with you. I'm about to be there. Janelle, Jovan, favorite Laker of all time? Shaq. Shaq's my favorite player of all time. Loved Shaq growing up. I'm going to... Adrian, Jovan, is Utah just playing hardball with Kessler? I'm sure. I would be shocked if they get... Shocked is maybe a strong word. I'd be surprised if they got 2 firsts for Kessler. I don't think he's going to go for that much. So... Hen L, I thought you had your last stream of 2024. I did too. And then the Lakers decided to make a trade, which is the one scenario I said I would come back for. So we are here. But I'm going to wrap here. I went a good 30 plus minutes over. I appreciate you all for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications so you never miss a video, and like and comment on this video. Again, for those subscribed on YouTube, let me know in the comments favorite moment of 2024 from the show, from the channel, and what you're looking forward to in 2025. If you have any feedback, any suggestions, things you want to see more of, please let me know. And then for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I will be back tentatively, barring another trade happening or something else happening crazy, on January 1st. I will not be doing a post-game reaction after the Lakers-Cavs game. I will be spending time with my wife and my son, but I will be back late morning, early afternoon with a post-game reaction, a later post-game reaction on January 1st. So be on the lookout for that. And appreciate you all. Biggest stream of the year. We went out with a bang. Lakers made a trade, and I think that this team got better. And I think this was a really good trade for them. And they still have 2 first-round picks. They still have some flexibility with their contracts and their assets. So appreciate you all in the chat. Appreciate all the support, all the kind words. Thank you guys for understanding context and nuance, and for not jumping to conclusions or clipping different parts of what I say. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you all enjoy your time with your loved ones, your family, your friends. Hope you all have a happy, safe, and healthy New Year's. And I will talk to you in 2025. I hope. If not, something else happens, I'll be back and we will be covering it all. But I will talk to you all very soon either way.